Hello, I'm Aniel Tamirano, teacher trainer, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Empowering Teachers Worldwide. In the second video of this series, Assessment for Learning, the Road to Improvement, we looked at what learning intentions and success criteria are and their role in formative assessment. Now let's examine the third element of assessment for learning, peer and self-assessment. Now, when using formative assessment or assessment for learning in the classroom, peer assessment is an effective approach to enhance the learning of the students, but it's not without its problems. But to begin with, I'd like you to take a few seconds or a minute and think what you think peer assessment is and what it is not. If necessary, stop the video and make some notes. Now, we can safely say that peer assessment is not just the learners marking each other's work, although this can be part of it. Explicitly teaching students how to assess their work and the work of their peers has many benefits because it promotes students' understanding of their learning and provides opportunities for critical analysis of their own efforts, encouraging them to become more autonomous learners. Peer assessment allows learners to reflect critically upon the learning of their peers. And it is a reciprocal process because the student providing the feedback also benefits from increasing their own understanding by having to review someone else's work. And as a result, reflecting on their own understanding or on their own performance. It also allows students to develop a broader view of how questions can be answered, how tasks can be completed, or the methods their peers are using. Pupils can only achieve a learning goal if they understand that goal and can assess what they need to do to reach it. So, self-assessment is essential for learning. Now, the first and most difficult task is to get students to think of their work in terms of a set of goals. So peer assessment turns out to be an important complement to self-assessment. Self-assessment gives students an opportunity to use success criteria to make judgments, identify their strengths, and set targets. So it helps them to better understand what their own work is being judged against, what good work should look like, and how to go about making their work better. Now, meaningful peer and student self-assessment have the potential to positively contribute to student learning and achievement. But it takes time and it takes practice. So it's necessary to explicitly teach and model how to provide feedback before handing this to the students. Now, let's have a look at the advantages. Explicitly teaching students how to assess their own work and the work of their peers, as I said, has many benefits. It promotes student understanding of their learning, provides opportunities for critical analysis of their own efforts, encouraging them to become autonomous learners. It also increases the responsibility in the sense that there are no passengers. They cannot be just passengers on this journey. They have to take responsibility and they have to act. It promotes active learning. Everybody is involved in it. It allows for instant feedback. They can see examples of good work and, of course, of mistakes. Obviously, this is a very useful life skill, and let's face it, it reduces teacher workload when done correctly. Now, implementing peer and self-assessment is not without its problems. We have, first of all, the attitude of learners, the typical, okay, this is your job. We aren't qualified teachers. Learners need to see peer assessment as a learning and improvement process rather than as an opportunity for the teacher to avoid doing the marking. So it's best not to award marks from peer assessment, but use it to offer constructive feedback. That is, making them realize that assessment for learning is learning and not a way of measuring performance. It doesn't replace teacher marking. Also, another problem is consistency. So we struggle to standardize examiners. No, avoid using exam questions and use other more qualitative work. Also, accuracy in the assessment. Peer assessors tend to undergrade and self-assessors tend to overgrade. So how can we solve this? By using success criteria. Also, giving vague feedback. They will need training in giving feedback, or you will end up having things like, oh, this is interesting, it's nice, I like it, which is totally useless. There are also social issues. You need to select who assesses who, because you have friends and enemies marking work or assessing work. Also, some people, some teachers argue that different ability levels can be a problem. That is, they say that there is no point having a lower achieving learner assessing a higher achieving learner. I tend to disagree with this. And of course, they may not fully understand what makes a piece of work good. So, how can we solve these problems before they happen? Okay, first of all, by having students do this frequently. Peer assessment occurs best when students are accustomed to and comfortable with a cycle of assessment, feedback, action, and also when being used to using learning intentions and success criteria, and also when they are used to receiving and applying improvement feedback from their teacher. So, when we are talking about self-assessment, when teachers explicitly teach students to become effective self-assessors, they become empowered to take charge of their own learning. And this, I insist on this, is a necessary skill for lifelong learning. Now, how can we introduce peer and self-assessment in our lessons? First of all, by identifying assignments or activities for which students may benefit from peer and self-assessment and feedback. We don't necessarily have to ask them to do this in every activity, of course not. Choosing, identifying key activities is enough. Also, consider breaking a larger assignment into smaller pieces and incorporating peer assessment opportunities at each stage. For example, if students are doing a project, specify milestones at different stages of the project and introduce opportunities for peer and self-assessment and feedback in those stages, in those milestones. Also, involve students in defining and clarifying success criteria. That is, the descriptions of what achievement of learning intention looks like. Work with samples, with exemplars that make the criteria visible for the students. Teach them how to apply the criteria. That is, explicit instruction and modeling will help them understand what constitutes quality. Provide guidance as they apply the criteria. For example, applying criteria to anonymous samples deepens understanding of these criteria, helping students learn to carry out peer assessment by modeling appropriate constructive criticism and descriptive feedback through your own comments on student work and well-constructed rubrics. And also, support students in peer assessment and feedback, giving them prompts, including sentence starters, feedback forms that will help them give appropriate feedback. Now, how can we support peer assessment over time? First of all, combine it with teacher feedback. And develop and use peer assessment tools, for example, templates, checklists, rubrics. Use the gradual release of responsibility model, that is, teacher modeling, guided instruction, shared practice, teachers and students, and then independent practice. Develop ground rules for giving effective feedback, that is, rules that the students will use when giving and receiving feedback. Insist and require evidence that peer assessment and feedback occur and improvements occur before the students submit or request your assistance. Co-develop ground rules for peer assessment, and you can display, for example, a wall chart or design bookmarks for each student with those ground rules. Select appropriate strategies or tools for students to use for peer assessment tasks. Again, teach and model, teach and model, teach and model. Involve them in developing criteria. Have them assess each other's work against the success criteria. Help them identify and indicate where the success criteria have been met or haven't been met. And highlight an area for improvement. Make improvement suggestions. Remind them of the success criteria and emphasize that all comments must relate to the success criteria. Also, ask students to be responsible of the comments they make of their peers' work. And finally, allow 5 to 10 minutes for students to make improvements based on the feedback before they give in their work. Now, how can we support self-assessment? First of all, by making it a regular part of the lesson and not something that students do once in a blue moon. Ensure that they understand that self-assessment is about learning and improvement, not about being right or wrong. Again, explicitly teach, model, and scaffold self-assessment using a range of techniques and tools. Ask the students to highlight the best section of their work. Explain why they think it's good. Have them identify where they have met the success criteria. Include reflection time at the end of the lesson. Teach them how to reflect on their learning. Provide sentence stems to help them reflect. Discuss and practice individual goal setting. Students are generally not used to setting goals for their own learning. Design some self-assessment templates. They are easily found, for example, on the internet. Introduce exit tickets, that is, cards where students write and submit answers to prompts such as, what was the most important thing that you learned today? What questions do you still have? What part of the lesson did you enjoy the most? What did you find the most difficult? Well, I hope this has been useful. Here you have my email if you would like to ask me a question. You can also visit my blog where you can find more material. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And of course, you can follow this YouTube channel and subscribe to it for more content like this. So till the next one, bye for now.